You know, I just wanted to record something with manual focus. And I wanted to record just to get some practice in on talking to this here camera. Now, I don't have anything specific lined up to talk about. But I can tell you what I'm thinking about. And I'm thinking a lot about... Well, first of all, I'm thinking a lot about how I should be doing this. You see, I've been making movies for a couple of years now, and I haven't published a lot of them, and I'm not very happy with most of them. And although I'm happy with a few of them, I don't really feel that it's the right way to convey what I'm conveying, or I'm trying to convey. And the problem with that is that I don't get any feedback, that I don't have any clue about the impact or relevance of the content I'm creating. Now, I know it's relevant in general and more specific with specific people I'm sharing this with, but on a video level it's just a completely different game. And I don't know if I like the game, to be honest. You see, what I've realized through all these years is that education, self-education, is the key to unlocking the power of your consciousness, to unlocking the key to shaping yourself. The ability to recognize brainwash, to unbrainwash, and to re-brainwash yourself is the essence of taking control of your life, unlocking your own potential. And that's great. But what I've also found is that there are people that are drawn to that, let's say, naturally. Naturally being for whatever reason. Personally, if I look at my own life, I think I've had a few issues growing up that played a big role in me developing the way I have. And I think discomfort and trauma are very big drivers for interest creation, for determining in where you will go and what you will look for and what will give you the fix that you need. And especially those that have this impossible fix requirement, right? If you're being raised in a way that you feel like you don't deserve anything, or that you have no right, or you will never do, right? Which I think most of us have somewhat. And I don't think it's our parents mostly. I think it's the educational system that in order to gain authority or to make you hand over your authority has basically just stomped your ego into the ground and told you you know nothing and we know everything and there's no discussion possible. That there's something inside of us that makes us feel inadequate. Which may sound like a bad thing, but there's a good side to that as well, because it makes us strive, it makes us do things, it creates somewhat of a forward motion in our idea of ourselves, which means we have to keep doing things. Now, and since we are abundant in most other things that used to be scarce, that's a good thing in a way, right? It doesn't have to be bad, it shouldn't become dysfunctional. It shouldn't be something that limits you or that hurts you too much, right? Anyway, so we all have these demons, so to say. And if you have demons, you fight with those demons, and then you either pay attention or you don't. And you could either pay attention on the level of the specific demon, and if you fight that specific demon long enough and you think about that long enough, you will realize that there's meta knowledge or insight to be had as well, or right on the fighting of demons. So you first write the book fighting this demon, which you don't understand as a demon, you just think it's something you need to deal with, a problem that needs to get fixed. And then the level above, you become aware that it's what we do. We fight demons. And the specific demon you're fighting isn't that interesting. It's like poker. We all have bad beats. Your specific bad beat isn't that interesting. Yeah, you had great cards. Someone played bad and you lost. Okay, we get it. The same thing with demons. Yeah, you fought your demon, you didn't win, and you're going to fight him again tomorrow. We get it. Although, people that are still stuck in the drama, that are still stuck in gossip-like thinking, they'll be very interested in your specific demon stories. I think a lot of our TV is filled with demon stories. And that's fine, right? Demon stories or drama stories or love stories are all great. They're examples, they can be inspirational, they could be warnings, so there's nothing wrong with that. But there comes a time when we need to move past that, when we need to move to a level where we think about conversation more generally, or more specifically towards ourselves, but generally as in not the content of a conversation, but conversation as a medium of communication, transferring a thought, putting into practice, dealing with language that we have dealt with purely in our head up till that point. So that's a big issue in our society. And so it all comes down to education. It comes down to education, which you could look at the educational system, which I think has a big role in that. You could look at parenting, which has a big role, but now you have a big role, right? Because there comes a point when you move past those two institutions, they declare you adult, or they declare you done and send you off. And that's when you need to wake up somewhere along the way, where you need to realize it's you that is responsible for what you are, not them. You can't point a finger at them and say, well, this is how they made me. So that is where my essence is, right? And I'm thinking about how to deal with that. How do I convince people? And should I convince people? Because, well, on the one hand, there's nothing wrong with inspiration, right? So I'm thinking, on the one hand, I'm thinking people that are interested in the subject will arrive at this subject, right? So what am I going to offer? I'm someone who's done the journey, so I guess I can help with the journey. And maybe I could help inspire people to start the journey. I guess that's what I'm doing here. But it's, right, the fight isn't about the content, right? It's not about this is the way the world works or this is the way you should look at life. It's about getting people to a point where they take ownership for their own life, where they accept that they're an autodidact, just like everyone else, and deal with that, and actively and consciously go about changing or expanding their consciousness. I don't know exactly which is the right one, because I can't keep track of the amount of consciousness I have, so I could be changing. Just like I realized the other day that I always say to myself that I'm good at explaining things, because when I explain things, people say, well, if you say it like that, it makes a lot of sense. That's what I do with myself too. I keep talking until it makes sense. And then I realize that perhaps I'm not good at explaining, but I'm good at convincing. Which is, in a way, a scary thought, because it just means I'm delusional, perhaps, but I wouldn't know, because I can convince myself I'm not. Plus, I can convince other people they're not too. So you'll never know what it is you're doing, and whether or not you're doing the right thing, and whether or not you're sane, and whether or not you're normal, and whether or not you're intelligent, and whether or not you're, developed or expanding or moving direction or changing whatever course. And it doesn't matter. I would say we're like sharks in a way. We just got to keep moving, and that's how we stay alive. Consciousness needs change of scenery, even though maybe it isn't a real change of scenery. Maybe it's a perceived change of scenery. And it's the same with us, right? We need the control, or the illusion of control, or the illusion of free will. And if you look at that, you realize it doesn't matter if it's real or not. The perceived realness is real enough, because any realness is perceived, or any truth is perceived. I don't know, man. It's so fucking complicated and so awesome that we are like this split entity that sees the same things from different perspectives. We can never agree. So, this is the rambling you can expect when I turn on the camera without a plan and just look at the things that I like to look at. And that's my whole issue, is that I don't know where to start with you. I don't know where you are. I was thinking about doing this anonymously. I was thinking about doing this under my own name. I keep changing the idea about what channel or whatever. There's no consistency. There's no line. I should just do this daily. and just spout, I guess. See, what would I like to be for you? What would you look for? I'm not looking to be some hipster that tells you, like, look at the way I look at the world, it works great. I want to tell you about you. I want to engage you with you. That's the whole point. But there's this ego inside of me. There's this self-awareness, this consciousness that not only looks at things around it, but has some sort of standards about himself. The artist, I like to call him, which is the ego part that is pretentious in a way and also creative, right? It's very dualistic. It's great and it's an asshole, right? His good points are his bad points. He's very, like, self-obsessed in a good way, but he's so self-obsessed, and he makes up his own mind. But God damn it, he always makes up his own mind, right? He's fickle. He changes. He has a change of heart every 5 days. He both loves and hates you. He feels both connected and above you, or below you, depending on what day. This artist, man, he's very annoying. He hates looking at himself unless he feels like he's looking great. He hates listening to himself unless he feels I'm making a lot of sense. He can't look at himself unless he's pretending to be someone else, looking at him through different eyes and seeing whether or not there's quality there. Standards are an asshole when it's about you, right? And I don't mind with design, right? I can design not that well, but I'm a very clean designer. So when I make a website, I can tell when it looks good. When I make a PowerPoint, I can tell when it's clear and clean cut and transfers the information well. When it comes to talking, when it comes to me, I don't know these things. I don't have a clue. And I think, if you would ask me, I would tell you we should get more self-obsessed. Anyway, narcissism has a good point too, right? It's all dualistic. And I should talk about this whole thing from my own perspective, right? I think we maybe somewhere along the way, when we started communicating through this, like, detached media, meaning, or how do you call this? This frozen medium where I create something and then you see it and I'm not there anymore, so it's a disconnect. I think when people started talking about themselves, there was this idea, like, this is so self-obsessed, this is so, to begin with, that if you're also talking about yourself, then you're just being, like, it's just not cool. So she would always talk in general. And I think education has done this as well. We shouldn't talk about you, we should talk about me, we should talk about the rules in general, right? There is general truth, there's general reality, there's shared things. And in a way it's true, but in the other way it's also false, meaning we should talk about me. You should talk about you. You should understand that when you take theory and you try to put it into practice, you are half of the equation that's going on there, meaning you can't do it without you. So why would you not look at you if you're such a big part of the whole thing working out or not? Right? It's like with dieting. People present diets like this is the way the diet works and it works for everyone. And they don't even say, that's the thing, they don't look at the fact that it might work for you, it might not work for you. They don't look at the fact that adherence to a diet is the key to success. And if you can't adhere to a diet for whatever reason, right? We start thinking, well, if he has no hands and feet, then we don't blame him because there's nothing he could do. But if he doesn't have the willpower, then we do blame him because we pretend like that's not a shortcoming, but then on the mental plane or on the mental body, right? We are who we are, and we gotta accept that, and we can try to change that, and we should. But let's be real, right? It isn't about general truth. It's about applied truth. Your truth is the only truth that matters to you. Should only matter to you, in a way, right? And of course, you should keep your eyes open for the truth, if that's what you want to call it, and you should see if there's a gap between your truth and the truth. But it's not about finding the objective rules of the universe or of dieting, right? Because that's what we think we're doing. We're thinking, well, we gotta find. We are conscious beings. We create reality by perceiving it and projecting it inward and perhaps outward. It doesn't matter. It's not the point. The point is, does a tree that fall in the woods when there's no one there make a sound? No, it doesn't, because if there's no one there to perceive it, there's no tree falling. And if you're saying, well, we know the tree is falling, then yes, it makes a sound, because then you're saying the world is real and it exists, and then the rules apply as they apply. You understand? You make it real. Nothing happens without you being there. It's just the way it is. I don't know, it's stupid to look at it like that, in a way, right? Because you're saying, well, if I come back and then stuff certainly happened and it was all real and they tell me about it, but it's not real to you, okay? And there's a difference, and you need to accept that. The internet is awesome, and it's helping with this, it's helping with everything. The internet expanded our consciousness exponentially, and it's still doing that. It's going to do that for a while to come. It's fucking awesome. But it also created this idea that unless we're talking to the global village, that's not relevant. Which is bullshit. You are a local being. And your reality will always be local. And the only large scale you can really get is, I would say, artists that perform in front of 40,000 people or something like that. That's the largest scale you can get. And it's completely detached, right? You just see the entity of 40,000 people. You don't see 40,000 people. I gotta pay attention because in 4 minutes this movie ends. So I gotta repress the record button. Although it might be interesting to see what happens if I don't. Will it just do it himself? I don't know. Anyway, let's refocus. What I'm trying to say is that I think because of whatever reason we were brainwashed to think that, we have this idea of living in a larger thing than is real. And our frame, what we see, how we perceive the world, we find that lacking. So we don't pay attention to it as much as we should. And we get to thinking we live in this imagined world where it's all about ideas and the way people look at us and think about it, and myth and story, and right? And in a way it's true, because as long as we are all keeping that up, then it is true. And then if we give a lot of importance to what other people think of us, and that matters because that determines whether or not we get promoted or accepted into the group, then it does matter, right? But it's not the essence of what we are. I think if you look at the essence, then we are just curious beings that are by nature designed to only know partial truth or partial reality, so that we need each other, so that it becomes interesting because there's unknown and there's fear and there's uncertainty and discomfort. And that creates propulsion. It creates a need that otherwise wouldn't exist. It creates not me, which is interesting because if it was all me, then it was boring because I know it all. It's all me, right? I'm not looking at my body the whole day thinking, oh, it's so interesting. No, other people's bodies are interesting, especially females in my case, right? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be sexist here. I'm just saying that there's this dynamic that is created because of what we are that is very interesting. And that brings with it certain negatives, which aren't negative. It's just they create the propulsion that we need in order to keep moving. So I think I'm going to approach this whole content creation in a couple of ways. I'm going to do this, rambling talks. I'm going to make structured talks where I actually prepare things. And I'm going to do short movies when I just have this insight or idea I should share, which could be Captain Obvious stating the not interesting obvious, or it could be very interesting. I don't know. It's just up to you to decide for yourself, and give me feedback if you wish. I guess I'm going to have to find a way to connect to someone or some idea of what and who you are. And that's just the way it's going to be, man. This is manual focus, just reminding myself. I've recorded for 20 minutes almost, which is very impressive. I mean, I really love the Sony picture, but it won't go past, like say, 15, 16 minutes. It will just go overheat. I got 20 minutes on this thing. I'm sure I can go another 40 or 20. I could just stop and record, and that is so awesome, right? I can just record unlimited. which means I can address my Excel philosophy. I can address my philosophy on the Metaflow model, on the process. I can just go into some subjects really deeply, and I will. And we'll see how it goes, man. I'm very happy. So I'm going to quit, because in 40 seconds this will stop. I just want to see what happens by itself. So I'm not going to stop and re-record. Thanks for watching. Sorry if it's a little sloppy and I'm looking all over the place. It's just, I got to find a way, man. I got to find a way to do this. Thank you. See ya.